The morphine drip clicks steadily beside the hospital bed, each drop a countdown to someone's salvation. I watch Jessica Rodriguez lean over the patient chart, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the harsh fluorescent light as she explains the organ matching process to the desperate family gathered around bed 12. Her voice carries that same gentle, caring tone she used when we were college roommates, when she would stay up all night helping me study for organic chemistry exams, when she promised we'd be best friends forever. She has no idea that I'm standing 3 feet away, clipboard in hand, wearing the crisp navy blazer of a transplant coordinator. She doesn't recognize the woman I've become because Maya Chen died 18 months ago in operating room 7, 2 floors below where we're standing now. At least that's what the death certificate says. Jessica adjusts her badge, the one that reads Medical Administrator, Organ Procurement Division, and I catch the glint of the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist. The same bracelet I complimented her on the night she invited me over for what I thought was a celebration dinner. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The night she slipped enough fentanyl into my wine to put down a horse, then called her contact to come collect the merchandise. That was my body. The family nods gratefully as Jessica explains how their daughter's organs will save lives, how her heart will beat in another chest, how her kidneys will give someone years they wouldn't have had. It's a beautiful speech about the gift of life delivered by a woman who sold my organs to the highest bidder on the black market while I was still breathing. Mrs. Patterson, I step forward, my voice professional and warm. I'm Maya Chen, your daughter's transplant coordinator. I'll be overseeing the procurement process to ensure everything goes smoothly. Jessica's head snaps up at the sound of my voice. For a split second, I see it. The flicker of recognition followed immediately by confusion. Her brown eyes narrow slightly as she studies my face, trying to place where she's seen me before. I've changed since our college days, lost 20 pounds, cut my hair into a sleek bob, traded my thick glasses for contacts, but the bone structure is the same, the voice is the same. I am the same. Have we met before? Jessica asks, extending her hand with professional courtesy, though I can see the uncertainty creeping into her expression. I don't believe so, I reply, shaking her hand firmly. Her palm is slightly damp, a tell I remember from our study sessions when she was nervous about an exam. Though I've heard wonderful things about your work in organ procurement. Your success rate is quite impressive. The compliment seems to relax her, and that familiar Jessica smile spreads across her face. The one that convinced me to trust her with my life savings, my graduate school plans, and ultimately, my actual life. She has no idea that I spent the last 18 months researching every illegal organ transaction that passed through this hospital, that I know about the off-book surgeries, the patients who checked in for routine procedures and never checked out, the network of corrupt medical professionals who turned healing into harvesting. The Patterson family retreats to the private consultation room, leaving Jessica and me alone in the hallway outside the ICU. This is the moment I've been planning for since I opened my eyes in what should have been a morgue drawer and found myself somehow, impossibly, alive again. Not just alive, but armed with memories of a death that had already happened and knowledge of crimes that were yet to be discovered. So Maya, Jessica says, glancing at her tablet, how long have you been working in transplant coordination? About 6 months, I reply, which is technically true. I started this position exactly 6 months after I clawed my way out of what should have been my grave. I transferred here from Northwestern Memorial. I wanted to work somewhere that really made a difference in people's lives. Jessica nods approvingly. That's exactly why I got into this field. There's nothing more rewarding than knowing you've helped save lives. She pauses, then adds with what appears to be genuine emotion, I actually lost someone very close to me not too long ago. It really put things in perspective, you know? It's made me appreciate how precious life is. The audacity nearly takes my breath away. She's talking about me. She's standing here, looking me in the eye, talking about how my death affected her, how it motivated her to help others. The woman who murdered me is using my death as inspiration for her humanitarian work. I'm sorry for your loss, I managed to say, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Was it sudden? Very sudden, Jessica says, her eyes distant, as if she's remembering a tragic accident rather than a calculated murder. She was my best friend from college. We were supposed to move in together, start our careers together. One day she was there, planning our future, and the next. She shakes her head, as if the pain is still too fresh. What happened, I ask, though I already know every detail. I lived it, died from it, and somehow survived to tell about it. Drug overdose, Jessica says quietly. She'd been struggling with some personal issues, financial problems, relationship troubles. I guess it all became too much. They found her in her apartment 3 days later. 3 days. She let me rot in that abandoned warehouse for 3 days while Dr. Ryan Mitchell harvested everything valuable from my body. My heart, kidneys, liver, corneas, even my bone marrow. They left just enough to make it look like an overdose when the body was eventually discovered. The only thing they didn't count on was the body refusing to stay dead. That must have been devastating, I say, and Jessica nods, actually managing to produce a tear. The worst part is, I keep thinking there was something I could have done. Some sign I missed. We had dinner together the night before, and she seemed fine, happy even. She was talking about some new opportunities, how things were finally looking up for her. Jessica wipes her eye with the back of her hand. I just wish I'd known she was in so much pain. The dinner, our celebration dinner that turned into my last meal. I remember Jessica raising her wine glass, toasting to new beginnings and old friendships. I remember the slight bitter taste in my wine that I attributed to it being a cheaper bottle than Jessica usually bought. I remember the room starting to spin, Jessica's concerned voice asking if I was okay, her hands guiding me to the couch, to rest for a minute. I remember the darkness creeping in from the edges of my vision, and Jessica's face above me no longer concerned but coldly calculating. Sometimes the people closest to us are the best at hiding their pain, I say. Testing how far she'll take this performance. Exactly, Jessica agrees, warming to the theme. Maya was always so good at putting on a brave face. She never wanted to burden anyone with her problems. I think that's why she never told me how bad things had gotten. Maya, she's using my name, talking about me in the past tense, constructing an entire narrative around my supposed suicide. It's masterful, really. She's not just covering up a murder, she's rewriting the victim's entire story. According to Jessica's version, I wasn't. A promising pre-med student with a bright future and a full scholarship to medical school. I was a troubled young woman spiraling towards self-destruction, someone whose death, while tragic, was almost inevitable. Did she have family? I ask, wondering how deep this fabrication goes. Her parents died in a car accident when she was 16, Jessica says, which is true. She was pretty much alone in the world except for me. It's probably why she felt she couldn't reach out for help when things got bad. It's also true and the exact reason Jessica chose me as her victim. No family to ask uncomfortable questions. No support system to notice when I disappeared. No one to demand a thorough investigation into my death. I was the perfect target, isolated and vulnerable, with no one to mourn me except the woman who killed me. What about her career? I press. You said she was in pre-med? Jessica's expression shifts slightly, and I catch a flash of something that might be guilt. She was brilliant, she admits. Top of her class, research opportunities, the whole track to medical school. But the financial pressure was enormous. She was working 3 jobs just to stay afloat, and I think it wore her down. She started talking about dropping out, finding an easier path. This is where the lie really takes shape. Jessica is painting a picture of a woman who was already giving up, already defeated by circumstances, one whose death, while sad, wasn't the loss of unlimited potential, but rather the predictable end of a struggle that was too hard to win. It's a narrative that makes her feel better about what she did, and it would make others feel less urgency to investigate the details of my death. That's heartbreaking, I say, injecting just the right amount of sympathy into my voice. To be so close to achieving your dreams and then lose hope? I keep thinking that if I just offered to help her financially, maybe things would have been different, Jessica continues, really settling into her role as the grieving friend. Oh, but you know how pride can be. She never would have accepted charity. Charity. The word hits me like a physical blow because it reveals the true depth of her delusion. Jessica has convinced herself that what she did was almost merciful, that she saved me from a life of struggle and failure. In her twisted logic, selling my organs wasn't murder. It was harvesting value from a life that was already worthless. I'm sure you were a good friend to her, I say, watching Jessica's face carefully. Sometimes there's nothing anyone can do. That's what I keep telling myself. Jessica sighs. At least her death wasn't completely meaningless. Her organs saved several people. In a way, she got to fulfill her dream of helping others through medicine, just not the way she planned. The final piece of her self-justification slides into place. Not only was my death inevitable, it was actually noble. I didn't die as the victim of a brutal crime. I died as a hero who gave the ultimate gift. Jessica has turned my murder into a feel-good story about sacrifice and redemption. My tablet buzzes with an incoming message, breaking the spell of our conversation. I glance down and see a notification from Dr. Sam Thompson, the head of transplant surgery. Excuse me, I tell Jessica. I need to check this. The message is brief but significant. Maya, can you meet me in my office at 3 p.m.? I want to discuss the Patterson case and some irregularities I've noticed in our procurement procedures. Sam Thompson is the one person in this hospital who's been asking the right questions, noticing the patterns that everyone else ignores. He's the reason I was able to get this job, though he doesn't know it yet. When I applied for the transplant coordinator position, I made sure my resume found its way to his desk, along with some carefully placed evidence of irregularities in the organ procurement system. He hired me because he thought I might be the key to cleaning up his department. He has no idea I'm the key to bringing down the entire network. Everything okay? Jessica asks, noticing my expression. Just scheduling, I reply, slipping the tablet back into my jacket pocket. Dr. Thompson wants to review some cases with me this afternoon. I watch Jessica's reaction carefully, and there it is, the slight tightening around her eyes, the almost imperceptible stiffening of her posture. She knows exactly who Sam Thompson is and why his interest in organ procurement procedures should worry her. Sam's very thorough, Jessica says carefully. Sometimes too thorough, if you know what I mean. He tends to see problems where there aren't any. Really? He seems very dedicated to patient care. Oh, he is, Jessica says quickly. Don't get me wrong, he's an excellent surgeon. It's just that he sometimes gets caught up in administrative details that don't really matter. You know how some doctors can be about paperwork and protocols? This is interesting. Jessica is trying to preemptively discredit Sam to plant seeds of doubt about his judgment. She's preparing me to dismiss whatever concerns he might raise about the organ procurement process. It's a smart move, and it tells me that Sam is closer to the truth than I thought. I'll keep that in mind, I say neutrally. I should probably get back to the Patterson family. They'll want an update on the timeline. Of course, Jessica says, but she doesn't move to leave. Instead, she studies my face again, that puzzled expression returning. I'm sorry, but you really do look familiar. Are you sure we haven't met before? This is the moment I've been preparing for. The moment when I have to decide how much to reveal, how far to push. I could tell her the truth right now. Watch her face crumble as she realizes that her perfect crime wasn't so perfect after all. But that would be too easy, too quick. Jessica took 18 months from my life. I planned to take much more from hers. I get that a lot, I say with a smile. I guess I have one of those faces. It was nice meeting you, Jessica. I'm sure we'll be working together again soon. I turn to walk away, but Jessica's voice stops me. Maya? I look back over my shoulder, and for a moment, I see her clearly. Not the polished medical administrator or the grieving best friend, but the woman who watched me die and felt nothing but dollar signs. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The woman who turned my death into a business transaction? Be careful with Dr. Thompson, she says, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He's been stirring up trouble lately, asking questions about things that happened before you got here. Some people think he's more interested in making headlines than helping patients. Thank you for the warning, I reply, and I mean it. Jessica has just confirmed that Sam is on the right track, and more importantly, she's given me insight into how the network plans to handle him. They're going to try to discredit him, paint him as a troublemaker who manufactures scandals for his own benefit. As I walk away, I can feel Jessica's eyes on me, that nagging recognition still pulling at the edges of her memory. Let her wonder. Let her lie awake tonight trying to place where she's seen my face before. By the time she figures it out, it will be far too late. I make my way through the hospital corridors, past the familiar landmarks of my death and rebirth. The elevator where they wheeled my unconscious body down to the parking garage. The service exit where Dr. Mitchell's van was waiting. The loading dock where they transferred me like a piece of medical equipment to the abandoned warehouse that served as their off-books operating theater. 18 months ago, I died in that warehouse. My heart stopped, my brain activity ceased, and for all medical purposes, Maya Chen was gone. What happened next defies every law of science and medicine I learned in my pre-med courses. Somehow, someway, I came back. Not as a zombie or a ghost, but as myself, complete with memories of everything that happened and a burning need to make it right. The first thing I did was research. I spent months learning everything I could about organ trafficking, about the black market networks that operate in the shadows of legitimate medicine. I studied the players, the procedures, the paper trails that criminals think they've erased. I learned that Jessica and Dr. Mitchell weren't freelancers, but part of a sophisticated operation that had been harvesting organs from vulnerable patients for years. The second thing I did was plan. Couldn't simply go to the police with my story. Who would believe that a woman had returned from the dead to expose her own murder? I needed evidence, documentation, witnesses. I needed to build a case so airtight that not even the most corrupt officials could ignore it. The third thing I did was position myself. I created a new identity, complete with credentials and references that would get me hired in the Transplant Coordination Department at Metro General. I needed to be inside the system to understand how it worked, to identify all the players, to gather the evidence that would bring them down. Now, as I stand outside Dr. Thompson's office, I'm ready for the next phase. The confrontation. Revelation. The moment when Jessica Rodriguez and her network of killers learn that they're perfect. Victim has returned to claim her justice. I knock on Dr. Thompson's door and hear his voice calling me in. Through the window, I can see him at his desk, surrounded by files and computer printouts. His dark hair slightly mussed from running his hands through it, a habit I've noticed when he's concentrating on a difficult problem. "Maya," he says, looking up with a tired smile. "Thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." I settle into the chair across from his desk and notice the files spread out before him. Patient charts, surgical reports, procurement records. He's been busy. I'll get straight to the point, Sam says, leaning forward. I've been reviewing our organ procurement data for the past 2 years, and I've found some disturbing patterns. Irregularities in documentation, unexplained delays in processing, patients who were declared brain dead under questionable circumstances. He slides a chart across the desk toward me. This patient, for example, 24-year-old female, brought in after an apparent overdose. Brain death was declared within hours, organs harvested the next day. But when I looked at the timeline more carefully, something doesn't add up. I glance down at the chart, and my breath catches. Me. My original death certificate, my medical records from that night 18 months ago. Sam has been investigating my own murder without knowing it. "What kind of irregularities?" I ask, keeping my voice steady. The toxicology report shows massive amounts of fentanyl in her system, but the patient had no history of drug use. No needle marks, no paraphernalia found at the scene. Her roommate reported that she had been excited about starting medical school, had just received a scholarship. It doesn't fit the profile of someone who would suddenly overdose. Sam pulls out another file. And then there's the procurement timeline. Usually we have at least 24 to 48 hours between brain death declaration and organ harvest to allow for family notification, donor matching, recipient preparation. But in this case, everything happened unusually fast, almost like the organs were pre-sold. Pre-sold, because they were. Jessica had already lined up buyers before. She ever invited me to dinner? My kidneys went to a wealthy businessman who didn't want to wait on the transplant list. My liver went to a celebrity who needed to keep their addiction problems out of the press. My heart went to a senator's daughter whose family could afford to pay premium prices for immediate service. Did you share these concerns with anyone else, I ask? Sam's expression darkens. I tried. I brought it to the attention of the procurement department, specifically Jessica Rodriguez, since she was the administrator who handled this case. She assured me that everything was done by the book, that the family had requested expedited processing for religious reasons. But there was no family. Exactly. The patient was listed as having no next of kin. So who exactly requested the expedited processing? Sam leans back in his chair, frustrated. I've been trying to get answers for months, but I keep hitting walls. People who won't return my calls, records that mysteriously go missing, colleagues who suddenly don't want to discuss certain cases. This is it. This is the moment I've been building toward. Sam Thompson has done the investigative work, identified the inconsistencies, asked the right questions. All he needs now is someone to fill in the missing pieces, to give him the evidence that will turn his suspicions into criminal charges. Dr. Thompson, I say carefully, what if I told you that the irregularities you found aren't isolated incidents? What if there's a systematic pattern of illegal organ harvesting happening right here in this hospital? His eyes sharpen with interest. Do you have evidence? I have more than evidence, I reply, reaching into my briefcase and pulling out a thick folder. I have documentation of at least 15 suspicious cases over the past 3 years. Patients with no history of drug use who supposedly overdosed, homeless individuals who were declared brain dead under questionable circumstances, people with no family or support system who became organ donors despite never signing donor cards. Right. Opens the folder and begins reading, his expression growing more horrified with each page. How did you get this information? I've been conducting my own investigation, I say, which is true, just not in the way he thinks. I suspected something was wrong when I started this position and noticed how certain cases were handled differently from standard protocol. This is... Sam stops reading and looks up at me. Hey, this is evidence of murder. Multiple murders. We need to take this to the police immediately. We need to be careful, I say. If this network has been operating successfully for 3 years, they have to have people on the inside protecting them. Police, hospital administrators, maybe even other doctors. If we move too fast or trust the wrong people, evidence could disappear and witnesses could be silenced. Sam nods grimly. What do you suggest? We need more proof. Documentation is good, but we need witnesses. We need to catch them in the act. I pause, letting him absorb the magnitude of what I'm proposing. I think I know how to do it, but I'll need your help. Whatever you need. There's going to be another victim soon, I say, the words tasting bitter in my mouth because I know it's true. Jessica and Dr. Mitchell can't stop now, not when they're under scrutiny. They'll need to prove that business is continuing as usual, that Sam's investigation hasn't spooked them. When it happens, we need to be ready to document everything. Every conversation, every procedure, every person involved. Sam is quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. You're talking about letting someone die to catch the killers. I'm talking about stopping killers before they claim more victims, I correct him. The next person they target is going to die whether we intervene or not. But if we're prepared, if we're watching, we can gather the evidence we need to shut down the entire operation. How do you know there's going to be another victim? I hesitate, knowing that my answer will reveal more than I intended, because they're under pressure now. Your investigation has them worried, and worried criminals make mistakes. Want to prove they're still in control? Still untouchable? And there's something else? What? Jessica Rodriguez is planning something big. I've overheard conversations, seen communications that suggest they're preparing for a major procurement event. Multiple organs, high-value recipients, enough money to retire on. This is partly speculation, but I know Jessica well enough to predict her behavior. She's not the type to back down when challenged. If anything, Sam's investigation will make her more determined to prove that she's smarter than he is. She plans something audacious, something that will generate enough profit to justify the increased risk. We need to involve law enforcement. Sam insists. We will, I agree. But not yet. We need irrefutable evidence first. Something so clear and comprehensive that even corrupt officials can't ignore it. Sam studies the files again, his jaw tightening as he reads the details of each suspicious death. These people were murdered for their organs. Their lives were stolen so someone else could profit. Yes, I say simply. I do. If we don't stop them, they'll keep killing. What's our first step? I lean forward, knowing that the next words out of my mouth will set everything in motion. We watch Jessica Rodriguez. We monitor her communications, track her movements, document her contacts. She's the key to the entire operation. When she makes her move, we'll be ready. Sam nods, his expression hardening with resolve. I'll start. Monitoring the procurement schedules, looking for patterns. If they're planning something big, it will require coordination with surgical staff, anesthesiologists, transport services, and I'll work from the inside, I say. As a transplant coordinator, I have access to patient files, surgical schedules, procurement requests. I can track the administrative side of their operation. Be careful, Sam warns. They suspect you're investigating them. They won't, I assure him, though I know the danger is real. Jessica is already suspicious, already trying to place where she's seen my face before. It's only a matter of time before her memory catches up with her recognition.
Nice.
When that happens, I need to be ready. Sam and I spend the next hour going through the files, identifying patterns and establishing protocols for our surveillance. As we work, I can't help but notice how methodical he is, how carefully he documents every detail. He's the kind of doctor I wanted to become, someone who combines technical skill with genuine compassion for patients.
Yes.
In another life, we might have been colleagues, maybe even friends. In this life, he's my partner in seeking justice for crimes that most people can't even imagine. And Jessica Rodriguez has no idea that her perfect victim has returned to destroy everything she's built on the foundation of stolen lives. As I leave Sam's office, I feel a familiar sensation, the electric awareness that comes with being watched. I turn casually, pretending to check my phone, and catch a glimpse of movement at the end of the hallway. Someone ducking quickly into a patient room, trying not to be seen. But I saw enough. The blonde hair, the navy blazer of the procurement department. Jessica was listening, or trying to. She followed me to Sam's office, and now she knows that we've been meeting, discussing cases that don't concern a new transplant. Coordinator. The game has officially begun. Jessica suspects that something is wrong, but she doesn't know how wrong or how much danger she's in. She thinks she's hunting a potential threat to her operation. She has no idea she's being stalked by her own victim, and that this time, Maya Chen isn't going to be the one who dies. The coffee shop 2 blocks from Metro General buzzes with the usual morning rush. Medical students cramming for exams, residents grabbing caffeine before grueling shifts, and administrators like Jessica Rodriguez meeting with contacts who prefer to conduct business away from hospital surveillance cameras. I sit at a corner table, laptop open to what appears to be routine transplant coordination reports. But my real attention is focused on the conversation happening 3 tables away. Jessica slides a manila envelope across the small round table. To a man I recognize from my research as Dr. Marcus Webb. It's an anesthesiologist with gambling debts and a suspended medical license from a previous hospital. His nervous energy is palpable even from this distance, fingers drumming against his coffee cup as he glances around the crowded space. The timeline is accelerated, Jessica says in a voice barely above a whisper, but I've positioned myself carefully, and the acoustics carry her words clearly to my strategically placed phone, which is recording everything through an app that looks like a meditation timer. We have a window of opportunity that won't last long. Dr. Webb opens the envelope slightly, revealing what appears to be medical records and photographs. His face pales as he reviews the contents. This is risky, Jess. After what happened with the Chen girl, I thought we agreed to lay low for a while. The Chen girl, me, they're discussing my murder like it was a business setback, rather than the destruction of a human life. Jessica's expression hardens, and I see a flash of the cold calculation I remember from that last dinner we shared. The Chen situation was handled perfectly, she says firmly. Clean death, no questions, organs distributed without complications. If anything, it proved our system works exactly as designed. But that surgeon you brought in, Thompson, He's been asking questions, digging into records, requesting files. Some of the procurement staff are getting nervous. Jessica waves dismissively. Thompson is a problem that's being addressed. He's too ethical for his own good, but that makes him predictable. Men like him always assume everyone else operates by the same rules they do. It makes them easy to manipulate. How exactly are you planning to handle him? By giving him exactly what he thinks he wants. Jessica smiles, and the expression sends a chill down my spine. Thompson believes there's corruption in the organ procurement system. So we're going to provide him with evidence of corruption. It's just not the corruption he expects to find. Dr. Webb leans forward, intrigued despite his nervousness. What do you mean? We're going to frame him, Jessica says simply. Plant evidence that suggests he's been selling transplant slots to wealthy patients, bumping them up the waiting list in exchange for substantial donations to his research foundation. By the time we're done, Dr. Sam Thompson will be facing criminal charges for the exact kind of corruption he's been trying to expose. The plan is diabolical in its elegance. Jessica isn't just going to silence Sam. She's going to destroy his credibility so thoroughly that any future accusations he makes will be dismissed as the desperate lies of a disgraced doctor trying to shift blame for his own crimes. It's the same strategy she used with me, rewriting the victim's story to serve her purposes. That could work, Dr. Webb admits. But what about the new coordinator, Chen's replacement? Maya Chen, Jessica says, and I notice how carefully she pronounces my name, as if testing how it sounds. She's been asking some interesting questions about procurement procedures. Very thorough, very detail-oriented. Reminds me of someone I used to know. Is she a problem? Potentially. But she's also an opportunity. New coordinators often discover irregularities when they're learning the system. If those irregularities happen to point toward Thompson's supposed corruption rather than our actual operations, well, that would be very convenient. Jessica is planning to use me to frame Sam. She wants to manipulate my investigation to serve her purposes, turning my search for evidence into a weapon against the one person who could help me expose the truth. It's a masterful plan, except for one crucial flaw. She doesn't know who she's really dealing with. What about the current project? Dr. Webb asks, tapping the envelope. You said the timeline was accelerated. Our client is becoming impatient. They've been waiting 6 months for a suitable match, and their condition is deteriorating faster than expected. They're willing to pay triple our usual fee for expedited service. Triple. Dr. Webb's eyes widen. How much are we talking about? Enough to retire on, Jessica says. But it has to be perfect. No mistakes, no complications, no loose ends. The subject has already been selected and is being prepared. My blood runs cold. I have another victim picked out, someone who's currently alive and unaware that they've been marked for death. Jessica slides another photo from the envelope, and even from this distance, I can see it's a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile. College student, no family, struggling financially, Jessica explains. Perfect psychological profile for someone who might be tempted by risky behavior. She's been attending some parties where recreational drugs are common. When she overdoses next week, it will be tragic, but not entirely surprising. I have less than 7 days to save this girl's life and gather enough evidence to stop Jessica permanently. The timeline she mentioned isn't just about the victim's preparation. It's about eliminating Sam and me before we can expose their operation. Dr. Webb studies the photograph with professional detachment. What's the procurement schedule? Friday. Night overdose. Saturday morning harvest. Sunday distribution. Jessica recites as if she's discussing a routine surgical procedure. The client will be prepped and ready at the private facility upstate. Clean transfer, no hospital records, no questions if Thompson or the new coordinator gets suspicious. They won't have time to act on their suspicions, Jessica says with chilling confidence. By Monday morning, Thompson will be facing criminal charges and Maya Chen will be transferred to a different department to avoid any appearance of impropriety in the investigation. She's planning to destroy us both professionally and legally, removing us from positions where we could interfere with her operation. But there's something else in her tone. a satisfaction that suggests she has additional plans for me specifically. Jessica always was thorough when it came to eliminating threats. The two conspirators finished their coffee and prepare to leave, but not before Jessica hands Dr. Webb a burner phone. Use this for all communications related to the project. The hospital phones are being monitored more carefully now. As they exit the coffee shop separately, I remain seated, processing what I've learned. Jessica's network is more sophisticated than I realized, with contingency plans for dealing with investigation and backup strategies for eliminating threats. But they've also revealed their next target and their timeline, giving me the information I need to stop them. I finish my own coffee and head back to Metro General, my mind racing with plans. First, I need to warn Sam about the frame job without revealing how I obtained the information. Second, I need to identify and protect Jessica's intended victim. Third, I need to gather enough evidence to prove the conspiracy before Friday night's planned murder. The hospital corridors feel different now, charged with urgency and danger. Every person I pass could be part of the network. Every conversation could be monitored. Every action could be reported back to Jessica. I've moved from passive observation to active interference, and that changes everything. My phone buzzes. With a text from an unknown number, Conference Room B, 3rd floor, 20 minutes. Come alone. The message deletes itself immediately after I read it, leaving no trace. I take the elevator to the 3rd floor, my heart pounding with anticipation and fear. Conference Room B is in a rarely used section of the hospital, away from main thoroughfares and security cameras. When I arrive, I find Dr. Sam Thompson waiting for me, but he's not alone. Detective Maria Santos sits across from him, stern-faced woman in her 40s, with the weathered look of someone who's seen too much corruption to be easily surprised. She studies me carefully as I enter, evaluating my potential as either an ally or a threat. Maya, Sam says, standing to greet me. Thank you for coming. I know this is irregular, but we need to talk. Dr. Thompson filled me in on your conversation. Yesterday, Detective Santos says, without preamble, your allegations about organ trafficking are serious enough to warrant a criminal investigation. But I need more than suspicions and statistical anomalies. I take a seat across from them, weighing my options. Sam has already involved law enforcement, which accelerates the timeline considerably. If Detective Santos is legitimate, she could provide the protection and legal authority needed to stop Jessica's network. If she's corrupt, I've just walked into a trap. What exactly do you need? I ask carefully. Proof, Detective Santos replies. Documentation of illegal activity, recorded conversations, financial transactions, something that will hold up in court. The irregularities you've identified suggest criminal activity, but they're not enough for arrests or search warrants. What if I told you that I overheard a conversation this morning between Jessica Rodriguez and Dr. Marcus Webb discussing plans to murder a college student next? Friday and harvest her organs for a private client. The detective's expression sharpens immediately. You overheard this conversation? At the coffee shop on Madison Street? They were discussing operational details, timelines, and payment arrangements. I pull out my phone and play the recording, watching their faces change as they hear Jessica's voice describing the planned murder in clinical terms. This is incredible, Sam breathes. They're talking about killing someone like it's a routine medical procedure. Detective Santos is more cautious. This recording was made without their consent in a public place. It's admissible as evidence, but we need more to build a comprehensive case. Can you identify the intended victim? Not specifically, but I saw a photograph. Young woman, dark hair, college student with no family support system. Jessica mentioned she's been attending parties where recreational drugs are common. We need to find her before Friday, Detective Santos says. Do you have any other information that could help us identify her? I hesitate, knowing that my next words will reveal more about my capabilities than I intended. I might be able to get access to Jessica's files, identify potential targets based on the psychological profile she described. That would require accessing confidential hospital records without authorization, the detective warns. I can't officially endorse that kind of activity. But you can officially stop me from doing my job as a transplant coordinator, I reply. If I happen to notice unusual patterns in procurement requests or donor profiles while conducting routine administrative duties, hey, that's well within my professional responsibilities. Sam nods approvingly. Maya has legitimate access to most of the relevant systems. If she reviews files as part of her normal workflow, any discoveries would be legally obtained. What about the frame job they're planning for Dr. Thompson, I ask. Jessica's planning to plant evidence that suggests he's been selling transplant slots to wealthy patients. We can use that to our advantage, Detective Santos says thoughtfully. If we know the frame is coming, we can document the evidence planting process. That would give us proof of conspiracy and evidence tampering. It's dangerous, Sam points out. If they succeed in framing me, my credibility is destroyed, and Maya becomes their next target. Not if we're prepared, I argue. We let them think their plan is working while we document everything. Then move to frame you, we'll have evidence of their criminal conspiracy. When they try to eliminate the supposed victim on Friday, we'll be ready to stop them and gather definitive proof of the murder plot. Detective Santos studies me carefully. You're talking about a complex undercover operation with multiple moving parts and significant risks. Why are you so committed to stopping these people? The question hangs in the air. It's demanding an honest answer that I can't give without revealing the truth about my death and resurrection. I need a response that explains my motivation without exposing the supernatural elements that even I don't fully understand. Because they're killing innocent people and profiting from it, I say simply, because the system is supposed to protect patients, not harvest them for parts. Because if we don't stop them, they'll keep murdering until someone finally does. It's not the complete truth, but it's true enough to satisfy the detective's question and explain my determination. Sam nods approvingly, recognizing the ethical commitment that drives good medical professionals. All right, Detective Santos says, here's how we're going to handle this. Maya continues her normal duties while looking for information about potential victims and evidence of the trafficking network. Dr. Thompson documents any attempts to plant evidence against him. I'll work on getting surveillance authorization and building the legal framework for arrests. What about protection for the intended victim once we identify her, I ask. We'll put her under protective surveillance without her knowledge. If they attempt to drug her or abduct her, we'll intervene immediately. And if something goes wrong, Sam asks, they realize we're investigating them? Then we move fast, the detective replies grimly. Make arrests based on whatever evidence we have, and hope it's enough to hold them while we build stronger. Cases we spend another hour coordinating our approach, establishing communication protocols and backup plans. As the meeting concludes, I feel a mixture of relief and apprehension. Relief that I'm no longer working alone, that legitimate authorities are now involved in stopping Jessica's network. Apprehension because the stakes have been raised exponentially. And failure will mean not. It's just another victim's death, but the potential exposure and elimination of everyone involved in the investigation. As I return to my office, I notice increased activity in the procurement department. Jessica's moving between offices with unusual urgency, carrying files and speaking in hushed tones with colleagues. Something has changed since this morning's coffee shop meeting. Some development that has accelerated their timeline even further. My phone buzzes with an internal hospital message from Jessica herself. Maya, I need to discuss some urgent procurement matters with you. Can you meet me in my office at 4 p.m.? Thanks, Jessica. No. The message is professionally polite, but there's an undercurrent of command that suggests this isn't really a request. Jessica wants to meet with me alone, away from Sam and outside the normal workflow of transplant coordination. Either she's planning to recruit me into her conspiracy, or she's planning to eliminate me as a threat. I text Detective Santos with a coded message we established, meeting with primary subject at 4 p.m., location Alpha. Her response is immediate. Understood. Backup positioned. At 4 o'clock, I make my way to Jessica's office in the procurement department, hyper-aware of every detail in the hallway. The placement of security cameras, the location of exit routes, the number of people who might witness whatever happens next. Jessica's office is at the end of a corridor with limited foot traffic. Perfect for private conversations that shouldn't be overheard. I knock on her door and hear her familiar voice calling me in. The office is larger than mine, with windows. overlooking the hospital parking garage and a private bathroom that connects to the adjacent supply room. Jessica sits behind her desk, but she's not alone. Dr. Ryan Mitchell stands beside the window. The corrupt surgeon who performed the operations that harvested my organs 18 months ago. He's a tall man with silver hair and hands that appear steady despite the atrocities they've committed. His presence in Jessica's office confirms that this meeting is about more than routine procurement matters. Maya, Jessica says with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Thank you for coming. I'd like you to meet Dr. Mitchell. He consults with our department on complex procurement cases. Dr. Mitchell extends his hand and I shake it while fighting the urge to recoil. These are the hands that cut into my body while I was still alive. That removed my organs with surgical precision while I died slowly on an operating table in an abandoned warehouse. Pleasure to meet you, he says, in a voice that's surprisingly warm and cultured. Jessica has told me excellent things about your work in transplant coordination. Dr. Mitchell has been reviewing some of our recent cases, Jessica continues, and he's noticed some concerning patterns in our documentation procedures. This is it. They're beginning the frame job against Sam, setting up the narrative that will destroy his credibility and remove him as a threat to their operation. I need to play along while gathering evidence of their conspiracy. What kind? Of patterns? I ask, settling into the chair across from Jessica's desk. Irregularities in donor matching protocols, Dr. Mitchell explains, pulling out a tablet loaded with fabricated evidence. It appears that certain patients have been moved up the transplant waiting list without proper medical justification. Common factor seems to be substantial donations to Dr. Thompson's research foundation. The evidence is sophisticated, complete with forged documents and manipulated database records. They've created a paper trail that makes Sam appear guilty of exactly the kind of corruption he's been trying to expose. It's masterful in its thoroughness and devastating in its implications. That's very concerning, I say, reviewing the fake evidence on his tablet. Have you reported this to hospital administration? We wanted to get your perspective first, Jessica says. As the current transplant coordinator, you'd be in the best position to confirm whether these irregularities represent actual policy violations or if there might be legitimate explanations we're missing. They want me to validate their fabricated evidence to provide the professional credibility that will make their frame job more believable. My confirmation would essentially sign Sam's professional death warrant and clear the way for their continued operations. I'd need to review the original files to make a proper assessment, I say carefully. Compare these reports with the actual medical records and donor profiles. Of course, Dr. Mitchell agrees readily. We've prepared a complete documentation package for your review. However, given the sensitive nature of these allegations, we need to handle this investigation very carefully. Carefully how? Jessica leans forward, her expression becoming more serious. Maya, what we're dealing with here could destroy Dr. Thompson's career and bring significant negative attention to the hospital's transplant program. We need to be absolutely certain of our facts before taking any action, which means keeping this investigation confidential, Dr. Mitchell adds. No discussions with Dr. Thompson himself, no sharing of information with other staff members, no documentation that could be misinterpreted if it became public. They're trying to isolate me from my allies while controlling the flow of information about their fabricated case against Sam. It's a textbook manipulation strategy. It's designed to make me complicit in their conspiracy while preventing me from seeking outside verification of their claims. I understand the need for discretion, I reply. But if Dr. Thompson is actually engaging in the kind of corruption you're describing, shouldn't we involve hospital administration and legal counsel? Eventually, yes, Jessica says. But first, we need to build an airtight case. Accusations this serious require extraordinary proof, especially when they involve someone of Dr. Thompson's reputation and standing in the medical community. What exactly do you need from me? Dr. Mitchell opens his briefcase and pulls out a thick folder. We need you to conduct a comprehensive audit of Dr. Thompson's transplant coordination decisions over the past 18 months. Look for patterns of favoritism, unexplained exceptions to standard protocols, any correspondence that might indicate inappropriate influence on donor allocation. 18 months. They want me to investigate the exact period that includes my own murder, to review the cases and procedures that would reveal their illegal activities if I were looking in the right direction. but they're directing my attention toward fabricated evidence of Sam's supposed corruption, hoping I'll miss the real crimes happening right under my nose. This is a substantial undertaking, I point out. It could take weeks to review that much material properly. We understand, Jessica says. That's why we're prepared to give you whatever resources and support you need. Dr. Mitchell has agreed to serve as a consultant on the medical aspects of the review, and I'll handle the administrative coordination. And Dr. Thompson? What happens to him while this investigation is ongoing? He continues his normal duties, Dr. Mitchell replies. We don't want to create suspicion or alert him to the investigation. However, we will be monitoring his activities more closely to prevent any potential evidence tampering. The trap is elegant and comprehensive. They're using my legitimate authority as a transplant coordinator to build a false case against Sam while positioning themselves as helpful consultants. When the investigation concludes with fabricated evidence of his corruption, I'll be the one presenting the findings, lending credibility to their lies through my professional reputation. When do you need me to start? I ask. Immediately, Jessica says. The sooner we can resolve these concerns, the better for everyone involved. She hands me a key card and a list of access codes. This will get you into the restricted archives where the older files are stored. Dr. Mitchell, we'll meet you there tomorrow morning at 7 to help you navigate the filing system. 7 in the morning, before the normal hospital staff arrives. In a restricted area, with minimal security coverage, they're not just asking me to participate in framing Sam. They're setting up a private meeting where anything could happen to me if they decide I know too much or ask too many questions. I appreciate your confidence in my abilities, I tell them. I'll begin the review tomorrow and provide you with regular updates on my findings. Excellent, Dr. Mitchell says, closing his briefcase. I think you'll find the evidence quite compelling once you've had a chance to examine it thoroughly. As I prepare to leave, Jessica stands and walks around her desk to see me out. Maya, I want you to know how much I appreciate your professionalism in handling this situation. It takes integrity to investigate potential misconduct, especially when it involves someone you work with closely. I believe in following the evidence wherever it leads. I reply, which is entirely true, just not in the way she thinks. That's exactly the attitude we need, she says, opening her office door. Oh, and Maya, given the sensitive nature of this investigation, I think it would be best if you moved your office temporarily to the Procurement Department. That way you'll have direct access to our files and Dr. Mitchell's expertise. She wants me physically isolated from Sam and the Transplant Surgery Department, removed from my normal support network and placed under direct observation by her people. It's another step in ensuring that their frame job proceeds without interference. That makes sense. I agree. I'll arrange the transfer this afternoon. As I walk back through the hospital corridors, I process the implications of what just happened. Jessica and Dr. Mitchell have revealed their strategy for destroying Sam and eliminating me as a threat. They've provided me with fabricated evidence and positioned themselves as the legitimate investigators of corruption they're actually committing. But they've also made several crucial mistakes. They've given me access to restricted files that might contain evidence of their real crimes. They've scheduled a private meeting in a location where I can document their conspiracy without witnesses. Most importantly, they've underestimated my ability to see through their manipulation. I text Detective Santos with an update. Frame operation. Confirmed. Evidence package received. Meeting scheduled for tomorrow, 7 a.m., location Beta. Her response is immediate. Understood. Technical support will be provided. Technical support means recording equipment. It's probably surveillance cameras and audio devices that will document whatever Jessica and Dr. Mitchell plan to do during our private meeting in the archives. They're planning to silence me permanently. Detective Santos will have evidence of premeditated murder. If they're simply planning to complete the frame job against Sam, she'll have proof of evidence tampering and conspiracy. As I pack up my current office in preparation for the move to procurement, I find myself thinking about the college student whose photograph I saw this morning. Somewhere in the city, a young woman is going about her normal life, unaware that she's been marked for death by people who see her as nothing more than a collection of valuable organs. Jessica's network has been successful because they choose victims who won't be missed. People who are isolated and vulnerable, But this time is different. This time, their intended victim has protectors she doesn't know about, and they're perfect. Crime is being monitored by people who understand exactly how they operate. Friday night is still 3 days away, but the real countdown began the moment I walked into Jessica's office and agreed to participate in framing Sam. Now I'm inside. Their conspiracy, positioned to document their crimes and protect their intended victim. Maya Chen died 18 months ago, but she's about to be reborn as the instrument of justice that will finally stop the people who killed her. Jessica thinks she's recruited me into her network, but she's actually given me everything I need to destroy it completely. The game has moved into its final phase, and this time, I'm the one holding all the cards. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.